So we have our the semifinals set for the TNT Championship. So we have Cody versus Darby Allin in one side, and we will be having Dustin Rhodes versus Lance Archer on the other. This is going to be very interesting how it turns out, because there's so many ways they can go. They could go realistically with any of these four guys, so we'll get to talking about that. Thanks for joining me, everybody. My name is Eric. You are listening to That's Wrestling. If you're checking this out as a podcast, I do this show live over on YouTube, so head over there. The link is in the show notes, or you can just go to YouTube and search for That's Wrestling, and you will find me. Like I said, I do this show live, so you can join me in the chat and ask questions or provide feedback or anything like that. If you're interested in being a co-host on this show, shoot me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. I'm looking for a co-host either for AEW, New Japan, or both, or if you just want to be a fill-in, shoot me an email. If you cannot find this show on your favorite podcast app, also send me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. You can also head over to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed if you cannot find it in your podcast app of choice. So, this episode of AEW Dynamite for April 22nd, 2020, we are continuing on in the very bleak era of empty arena, empty building matches, or whatever you want to call them, empty building shows. But, as always, AEW has continued to have wrestlers in the crowd, which, since they did a big bulk of taping, we probably will see the same people. Mostly we see Billy and Austin Gunn the most. They seem to be the most consistent being out there. But just that amount of noise, just that 12 people can generate, is amazing and definitely adds the atmosphere that you're looking for the show. They did that 1 week where they had absolutely nobody, and that was a bummer. So I'm glad they managed to go back to and realize that we need somebody making noise at ringside, which is a good thing. So this episode starts out with a great promo. It was really awesome. Basically, Cody is sitting down in front of like a command center with like 4 monitors sitting in front of him, and it pulls up the images of all the other guys in the TNT title tournament. He says there's the self-proclaimed Spanish god, a murder hawk, a UK paragon with pretty blue eyes in the back of his head, referring to Penelope, the intangible, referring to Darby, and the legend, referring to Dustin, his brother. And he says, "Who am I?" And then there's a recorded call with Arn Anderson saying that there's a difference between wanting and needing the championship, and Cody needs the championship and will be the champion. And then Cody questions how does he fit in, and can it really be future endeavors, which is a interesting dig at WWE. When they release somebody, they always say good luck in their future endeavors. Anyways, he says, is it really future endeavors if you don't intend to endeavor? And he says, am I just going to be the 3-star mid-card general for life? Did I break the throne because I was scared to sit in it? You hear things enough times, you start to feel comfortable. Am I comfortable? I'm going to meet one of these men in the finals, and will I be able to answer the call? He says it's really big of TNT to commission the new title, putting their stamp on it. And then complacency is a dirty word in wrestling. Ironically, it's an ally of the top guy, because those who are complacent, those who are content just to collect a paycheck, they're just bodies, they're just flesh to pound, and none of these men are that. All of these men could be champion. So this promo was total fire, and the digs were obviously subtle, but they're obviously there, digging at WWE, talking about, they always say future endeavors, and in this case, he's also going down complacency is ironically the ally of the top guy, which is a frequent criticism at Roman Reigns is that he's just complacent to be there, do what he's told, collect a paycheck, get rich, regardless of whether he produces good content or not, or is a good professional wrestler, whatever you want to say about it. But this promo was excellent way to start off the show. Again, Jericho is once again on commentary, which he recorded for all these shows, so we'll probably see him up until Double or Nothing. They did advertise Double or Nothing again, that it's going to be on pay-per-view, but we do not have details on where it's going to be and all that fun stuff, but they're still planning on, I think it's May 23rd. I'll have to check to be sure, but I think it's somewhere around there. But obviously, it's probably not going to be in Las Vegas. So where are they going to do it? Are they going to do it at Daly's Place? Are they going to still command a $50 price tag on pay-per-view? Because I don't think that's going to fly for this type of show, because you are losing so much atmosphere having this in an empty arena. I would say $10 at most on Fight and BR Live would make the most sense to get people to actually buy it and tune in. $50 is going to be a huge stretch, and I don't think that's going to work. So we'll see. Anyways, that is a completely different topic. So let's go into this. We start the night off with Sammy Guevara versus Dusty Allin, and this is the quarterfinal for the TNT title. They had nice pre-match video packages, very similar to last week, and I hope they continue doing this when they finally are back in front of crowds, because this gives us a little bit of insight into why the match is happening. Covers a little bit of the backstory. Sammy says that the loss at Revolution to Darby Allin was just a fluke, and then Darby Allin is commenting on how that Sammy has no idea how similar they are, and that he when he looks in the mirror, he kind of sees himself, or when he looks at Darby, he kind of sees himself. So Sammy attacks before the bell, mirroring the beginning of the Revolution match where Darby Allin attacked Sammy before the bell, and they had a brawl on the outside with some weapons. So in here, Allin gets thrown into the barricade a few times. No bell at this point, so this is all perfectly fine because the match hasn't started, just like Revolution. Sammy grabs a ladder from underneath the ring and sets it up between the ring and the barricade. He lays Darby Allin across it and goes up to the top rope, and he does a splash, and the ladder does not give. Wow. Holy crap, that looked like it sucked so bad because there was no give. I bet that hurt. Anyways, they go to commercial at this point with Aubrey Edwards and the doctor checking in on them, and we go through a commercial, and when they come out of commercial, the two are still pretty much laid out at ringside. Eventually, Sammy throws a seemingly lifeless Darby into the ring, and Darby kicks out of a pin attempt right there. Eventually, Darby ends up taking Sammy's boot off and taking his sock off, and he starts working over the ankle. At one point, both of these guys got bloodied hard way. Darby got a bloody nose. Sammy looked like he got a bloody tooth. Looked like he got kicked right in the front, or hit in the front teeth. I'm not sure how it actually happened, but his front teeth were bleeding. Sammy hits a 630. Darby ends up grabbing the rope to prevent the 3 count. Darby hits a flip over stunner, goes for a springboard coffin drop, but Sammy catches him into like the rack position, but then when he tries to flip Darby out, Darby counters it and then gets into the Last Supper pinning maneuver that he is using and picks up the pin. So I'm guessing Sammy is going to be pretty mad about this one, losing twice to Darby Allin now, and this time being kind of in a bit of a roll up type of pitting situation here, where he wasn't totally beat down, wasn't hit with like the coffin drop or anything. So I'm sure these two are going to have some more I have a feeling that this matchup, Sammy and Darby Allin, this is going to be kind of like a ongoing thing in AEW. Sammy and Darby Allin, and these two could definitely be the future of AEW. Say 3 years out from now, these guys could be in the main event, lower main event level, maybe even all the way to one of them, if not both of them, at some point holding the title, the AEW title. So we will see. This could be the start of something that we look back on in 3 years and say, wow, these guys, this is kind of like where it all started for them when AEW started. Next up, there is a Matt Hardy promo. So we have a very interesting promo because it starts off with a broken Matt Hardy. He says he's thankful for all of us joining him, the AEW audience, because words and events must be documented, using all of his normal inflections and mannerisms, I guess. And he says that he laid out a proposition to Christopher Jericho, lay whole of the ass. And he invited him to the Hardy compound for the match that he's calling the ultimate or the elite deletion. And 7 nights ago on Dynamite, he didn't hear a word, just an episode of the Bubbly Bunch. Personally, he thinks they should be called a melting pot of moon calves. Yeah, I had to look that up. I had no idea what a moon calf was. A moon calf is a foolish person. So that's a deep thesaurus cut right there from Matt Hardy. While he was watching In His Essence Damascus, he could sense your essence, speaking to Jericho, was trembling in fear, and you spilled the juice of the orange all over your countertop, only to have one of your underlings say the word. The only one mentioning my name was Sammy Guevara, the false god. And then he invites Sammy to the Hardy compound to fight Jericho's fight for him. Says that he will mash him up and eat him. He's a fraudulent Latino, and he sentences him to deletion. And wait, it all makes sense. He understands why Jericho did not want to mention his name, because he does not know how to handle the broken brilliance of broken Matt Hardy. And fortunately, things are different this time for broken Matt. A broken Matt Hardy for some are too intense, too over the top, and maybe in this case, you lay whole of the ass. Maybe you should speak differently to a different entity. The other entity, that of Matt Hardy, the mortal vessel. And then it cuts to Matt Hardy in normal dress, talking normally, and he's talking about how they've known each other for over 20 years. They've been friends, they've been enemies, they've been through it all. And whenever he showed up on AEW, he is so angry that Matt Hardy had the back of the Elite, because the Elite are his friends. He has great respect for Kenny Omega, and he feels that Chris Jericho is trying to take out the pillars of AEW so he can sit atop AEW, and Matt Hardy will not let that happen. The platform that AEW is building is a platform for keeping the business alive. It's for the future, and it's to try to do great things for the generations that follow. And he wants to protect that concept, and to send Sammy, who is an amazing, if you want to send Sammy, he's an amazingly talented guy, but he is going to kick Sammy's ass, and then he's going to kick everybody's ass in the inner circle until he gets to Jericho, and he's going to kick his ass as well. So I thought this was a really great video. Some people were a little back and forth on it a bit. Some people are really not into the broken Matt gimmick or don't understand it. I think this, if he's going to go this way, it's definitely going to pull it back more. And while Hardy is playing this off as he has two souls inhabiting his one body, I think everybody could take it if they want to, as there is obviously some sort of split personality here with Matt Hardy, with having the broken side and then having regular old Matt Hardy that we all know, that we've known forever. So, and that he could, or he could just be playing mind games. This is kind of all stuff I've speculated in the past before, that he could be doing this just to get into people's heads. And at some point we're going to figure out either one, he's doing it on purpose to get it inside people's heads, or he really has a split personality. And we are seeing the two sides, and while he might not recognize it within himself, or he sort of semi does with knowing that Damascus, the other entity within him, exists, he is playing it off as maybe it's two souls in his mind, when obviously he's having some sort of mental break. And that's something that I think they need to explore at this point, to try to explain this out and make it stand up a little better. But again, this is a really good promo. They had a lot of really good video packages on this. Again, after this, they had another Taz video going over, explaining a move. In this case, it was Kenny Omega's V-trigger and Snapdragon suplexes. Just like last week, it was awesome. Glad they kept this segment. I hope they keep doing segments like this of Taz doing kind of the breakdown of a move and kind of bringing this more sports feel to it, and explaining kind of wrestlers' signature moves and whatnot, and how they play into a match. Next up, we had Allin Angels, who lost to Archer back on the 8th. 2 weeks ago, and he went up against Kenny Omega. This should have been a squash match. I think Allin Angels got way too much offense in on Kenny Omega. Omega should have just crushed this guy super fast. The match went like 5 to 7 minutes, somewhere around there. Eventually, Kenny then finishes it off with a Snapdragon suplex and then hits the V-trigger for the win. So he did not use One-Winged Angel for this. So again, we still see kind of the lackluster booking of Kenny Omega and what he's been doing. I really like to see more out of Kenny Omega at this point. Hopefully once audiences can get back in there, then we can kind of have this ramped up, and Kenny Omega can kind of be pushed up to the front at this point. Because I think Kenny had so much stock going into AEW, and I think they just did not capitalize on the amount of stock that Kenny Omega had. Not that it's been bad with Chris Jericho being the first champion and then it going to Moxley. Perfectly fine with those decisions. I just think Kenny Omega has just kind of hung around the lower main card, or lower main event type of level. He is one of the tag champions, so he is holding gold in the company, but I think there just needs to be more for Kenny Omega. I think some of his quirkiness needs to be reined in a little bit, which I think is what New Japan was able to do a lot better than what AEW is doing right now. Whether it's not to hurt his feelings, or I have no idea why, because he is an EVP and whatnot, but I think they just need to kind of rein in some stuff and really make Omega more of a badass at this point, and really start to move that along. If they have to hold off till audiences come back, that's fine, but they need to head that direction sooner rather than later. Next up, we have another really great video package. It's kind of a Scorpio Sky profile. It talks about how he always loved wrestling and he always wanted to be a pro wrestler. He can't remember a time where he didn't love wrestling and didn't want to be a pro wrestler. He got a lower back injury in 2008. Is like the destruction and compression of his L2, L3 vertebrae, and he would not be able to wrestle anymore. And then one day he woke up and it started to feel better, and day after day it was getting better and better, and he decided to start wrestling again, and he just wasn't making it. And then he visited his mom's grave at one point. His mom passed away in 2014, and after that, he decided to himself that he would give wrestling one more chance, and then he got that opportunity. And in December of 2017, he joined SCU, which has obviously been a huge part of moving him into the position that he is now, and then is a to be continued. So we'll probably see some more. This is the stuff that they should have been doing all the way back on the first episodes of Dynamite. All these video packages, these wrestler profiles. This is the stuff that we should have been seeing for the past 6 months. And hopefully now that they have to create this stuff, they can't just do match, that they'll realize that this is the stuff that we've needed to see. We know they can do it. We've seen it in the Road 2 segments on YouTube. We've seen it in some Being the Elite segments, and various other content that's been on YouTube running up to their early pay-per-views. And then Cody has always had really good video segments, so we know they could do it. They just need to apply it to everybody else. Like we should have had all these things with Riho while she was champion. If she can't speak English, that's perfectly fine. She can do all of her promos in Japanese and then just subtitle everything. There is nothing wrong with that, and we could get to know Riho a lot more. And I think that's kind of something that hampered her title run. That we just didn't get to know Riho when we could have. It would have been easy enough. 2 to 3 minute packages every other week of her doing whatever and cutting some promo in Japanese and subtitling it would be perfectly fine. And I think we could have gotten a lot more out of the Riho title run if they did that. And I think if they did this with Scorpio Sky before SCU won the titles, or right after they won the titles, they could have their title run could have been better as well, because I don't think the tag title run originally was that great either. And I think both of those titles just haven't had the stock that they should have, because they did not put enough behind the wrestlers who held those titles, being SCU and Riho. Whereas Jericho is out there all the time cutting promos, and Moxley has had quite a few promos since he's become champion. So we need those. And Hangman and Omega as title holders now have been fine, because they've actually had some time. Obviously, right now we're going to have some issues because of the whole quarantine and all that fun stuff. But we'll see what this era bears out for the tag titles. Anyways, we cut to Cody is listening to a voicemail. It's Dustin leaving a message saying that he's been soul searching, that the TNT tournament is the most important thing that he's done since wrestling Cody at Double or Nothing. It means everything to him, and to win it at 51 should make Cody proud. It should make himself proud, and says that if he can't even beat Kip Sabian, he'll retire. So he throws that stipulation on that if he can't beat Kip Sabian tonight, he will retire. There was a commercial for BTE, for Being the Elite, about Nick versus Matt Jackson. I have not watched it yet. I did watch the last 4 episodes yesterday, but I did not get to the final one. So I'm going to check it out. But everybody says the match was really fun. It was a lot of play match, and they did stuff like a destroyer into the pool. So obviously there was no danger on that one, but I'm looking forward to checking it out. But it is up on their YouTube, the 200th episode of Being the Elite. And then we have a short Double or Nothing advertisement, basically just saying what happened last year, and that this is going to be an important show. No major details. Next up, we have Orange Cassidy with Best Friends at ringside versus Jimmy Havoc. If you'd remember, Jimmy Havoc attacked Orange Cassidy last week after Penelope Ford got involved with Kip Sabian's match with Chucky T. I believe it was Chucky T. Yes. And then he He, being Jimmy Havoc, gave Orange Cassidy that fisherman's or cradle DDT on the floor, and that kind of set up this match. So this is Orange Cassidy's first match on Dynamite. So man, this guy has like the best gimmick in the world. He rarely ever wrestles. He takes a couple bumps every other week. And that's about it. This is his first actual match on Dynamite. Havoc just beat the crap out of Orange Cassidy for quite a while. He took like 95% of the match. He rips off Orange Cassidy's jean jacket and chokes him with it, and then he rips off Orange Cassidy's shirt and chokes him with it. He throws him onto the outside, onto the barricade. He crotches him on one of the railings, does a suplex onto the floor, onto the mats on the floor. He hits a bunch of chops, runs Orange Cassidy into the post on the outside. Orange Cassidy ducks a chop, but Jimmy Havoc manages to stop himself from hitting the ring post, and he ends up slapping him on the back instead. And then Jimmy Havoc is just beating on Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy gets like no offense in. Eventually, Orange Cassidy is in the corner. Havoc is just beating the crap out of him. And then eventually, Jimmy Havoc puts Orange Cassidy's hands in his pockets, not Jimmy Havoc's pockets. He puts Orange Cassidy's hands into Orange Cassidy's pockets, which ends up being the big mistake, because that is kind of like Orange Cassidy's, as Jericho said, Popeye's spinach. So he hulks up and he starts hitting moves. He hits a drop kick, does the kip up with his hand still in his pockets. He does a dive to the outside. They fight. Orange Cassidy gets up onto the top rope, and Orange Cassidy pulls Havoc's feet out from under him. Looked like this was going to be a very interesting landing, because he pulled Jimmy Havoc's feet toward him, so Jimmy Havoc like went backwards. Luckily, he kind of hit like how you would normally do, like a split-legged moonsault. So he hit pretty high, kind of up on his thighs, so he did kind of flip over. So it was okay, but it looked like it could have been really bad if it didn't go that way. Orange Cassidy does his lazy splash off to the top rope for a 2 count. Havoc then starts hitting some massive strikes, and Orange Cassidy just kind of hits back with some weak ones. Havoc goes for an acid rainmaker, but Orange Cassidy ducks it and gives him a great Superman punch. Orange Cassidy has such a good Superman punch. Roman Reigns needs to take some lessons from Orange Cassidy here on how to throw this thing. Penelope Ford gets up onto the ring apron for the distraction. Chucky T pulls her legs, but she just drops down into a split. Kip Sabian ends up running through the ring and doing a dive onto the Best Friends. Ford tries to do a Rana onto Orange Cassidy, but misses, which then distracts Jimmy Havoc on accident. Orange Cassidy rolls Havoc into a crucifix pin and picks up the victory here. Jimmy Havoc is pissed. He then just goes right after Orange Cassidy after the bell and gives him a massive fisherman's DDT, and then the heels book it as Best Friends come into the ring. So I thought this is a really fun match. It might have gone a little long. They kind of lost me a little bit early on when it was just Jimmy Havoc just beating on Orange Cassidy and Orange Cassidy getting like 0 offense in. I think Orange Cassidy probably should have got his chance a little earlier in the match. Overall, very fun match, and Orange Cassidy picks up the victory, so he is now 1-1 as far as singles go. Next up, we have a really funny MJF promo. He is standing in front of this huge mansion, and the caption reads his rat's house, or his rat house, where so his ring rats have a huge mansion in Massachusetts and Cape Cod. And he is saying that we are facing a nationwide epidemic. The world is shaken to its core. The fact that MJF has not wrestled on AEW Dynamite is insane. And He says, you know, you've been craving MJF on your TV sets. And then he starts to fake cry because he says, but on my last appearance, while gambling, I was throwing some cash and I got a hangnail. But like the valiant warrior I am, I proceeded to gamble until the end of the show. And because of that, my injury has become life-threatening. He has his arm in a sling. So, of course, we are not privy to what the actual injury was. So is a hangnail that somehow became life-threatening. So we'll see. He says he will rise from the ashes like a phoenix, and he will become the AEW heavyweight champion when he gets back, because he's better than you, and you know it. I thought this was a really good promo. MJF has not been seen on TV for quite a long time. He was not there at the tapings because I think he received the injury before those tapings. So, unfortunately, I don't know what his injury actually is. I'm assuming it's something to do with a broken arm or needed surgery on an elbow or something like that. I haven't looked into what the actual injury is, but he does have his arm in a sling, so I'm assuming that is kind of what it worked out to be. Next up, we just have a squash match. It's Lee Johnson, who got crushed by Brodie Lee 2 weeks ago, versus Wardlow. They're calling him Mr. Mayhem. Very interesting. Wardlow just hits an overhead press into a power slam, some release suplexes, a spear in the corner, puts Johnson up on the top turnbuckle and pulls him down and gives him a rising knee. It was kind of like a GTS off the top turnbuckle, then gives him the F10 for the pin. That was basically it. That was just a squash. Next up, we have a Dark Order video. There's a guy. He's sitting in front of his computer. He's drinking, and on the computer is an old news article about the Heisman Trophy hopeful getting injured. I paused it to read some of the stuff that's in the video. It says that his name was Preston Vance. He was a Heisman frontrunner, aspiring male model. I'm assuming all of this is not real. He blew out both of his ACLs. He was found weeping behind the bleachers at the wee hours of the morning. And then he's on the Dark Order website. He clicks join Dark Order and starts typing that he needs help. He needs a new direction, that he used to have the whole world in his hands. Interesting reference to Bray Wyatt. It could be, as he had that saying that he has the whole, or even sang that song once in a while. Then we have Brodie Lee's on screen, and he says, first off, I want to thank you for visiting me. Uno's told me a lot about you and your past. I understand where you're coming from. I understand your frustrations. Trust me, of all people, I get it. And then he asks how tall he is, and he says he's 6'2". He's like, how much do you weigh? He says 240. You played college football? He says, I did. And Brodie Lee goes on, see a lot of people in AEW, they didn't work for the success, they were handed it, but Uno tells me that you're a hard worker. You just haven't gotten that payoff from all that hard work. A lot of people around here are afraid of success. Do you understand? Do I look like I'm afraid of success? I want to offer you success. I want to offer you the power, the strength in numbers. We are the lions of AEW. We feed on the prey. And then he pushes a mask across the table. He says, you are now home. You are one of us. You are Dark Order. I've gone into length about these types of videos. A lot of people have been complaining about this type of narrative structure video. Again, I do not have a problem with this as long as the on-air talent does not acknowledge the information that comes across in these videos, which this week they did not. So I was perfectly fine with it. It was put out for the audience to know, but it seems like the people who are the wrestlers and the announcers were not privy to that information because it was not mentioned. And that's exactly how you have to do. If you're going to do this narrative structure, that's exactly how you do it. You have the announcers and the rest of the wrestlers play dumb to the knowledge that is exposed in the narrative structure videos, because within the story, they should not know this stuff. I am perfectly fine with them doing this. A little bit of kind of the Lucha Underground thing. some people are complaining about it. I see absolutely no problem, given the condition. The wrestlers and other on-air talent do not acknowledge any of the information that is contained within narrative structured videos. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I don't feel the need that this needs to be some sort of leaked video. They can be filmed in narrative structure. I personally love this style, and I want them to continue to do it and just do it right, and I am perfectly fine. I don't think you're gonna satisfy some of the other people who do not like the hidden camera or the narrative structure. It's just how it is. I am perfectly fine. Next up, we have Justin Law versus Brodie Lee. Again, this is just a squash match. Justin Law was crushed last week by Sean Spears. Brodie just beat the crap out of him. Hits this wicked super kick, and then hits a couple of crazy suplexes. He's just toying with him at this point. Then hits a huge discus lariat, and it's all over. Marco is looking concerned at ringside. They keep mentioning Marco, so I figure something was going to happen. And of course, Brodie Lee makes his way over to Marco, stares him down, and then walks away. Marco doesn't back down. So this is going to be interesting to how this plays out. And after the next part, we will see why. Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford. The best friends were interviewed backstage. I do not recognize the interviewer. I have not seen her before, and they did not say her name or give her a lower third. Anyways, they say Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford have been getting their nose into our business. And then Trent, in a very mellow tone, says that, do I want to fight Penelope? Yeah. Can I legally? No. So I'm going to fight her boyfriend and Jimmy Havoc for some reason. This is me pissed. And Chucky says, you're not going to like Trent when he's quiet, because you're going to die. So that was the end of that segment, and they walk away. And then this is where they announce it's going to be next week. It's going to be Marco Stunt versus Brodie Lee, and then Cody versus Darby Allin in the semifinals for the TNT title. Next up, we have another Bubbly Bunch segment. I thought this was hilarious. Some other people did not. I love Jericho's humor, so this gets me every time. It starts with Sammy. He says, I don't know, guys. Things just haven't been going well for us. Was hoping that Jake would win the title. Then it cuts to Ortiz saying that if they were there, it would have gone differently. But, there's 3 guarantees in life. Death, taxes, and the inner circle being on top. It cuts to Jake, and Jake is saying, Sammy, you are too beautiful to be looking so sad. Sadness is for ugly people. Next time I see Moxley, it will happen on site, and he can't cheat to win. Then it goes to Jericho. I don't want you to be sad, Sammy. We're the inner circle, and we're going to do the same thing we always do when things don't go our way or when we're depressed and lonely. We dance. And then Santana is like, wait, guys, I got the perfect idea. How about we do a flim flam video? This is obviously just some nonsense. And then Ortiz is like, you guys know I love the flim flam. And Hager's like, I love the flim flam. And Sammy's like, I don't know, guys. I don't feel like I'm in the mood. Jericho's like, you should, because whoever does the best flim flam wins a prize. This bottle of hand sanitizer. And Sammy is like, really, Chris? A bottle of hand sanitizer? Well, why didn't you say so? Let's do it. and then they film these videos of them dancing. And then at the end, Jericho, everybody's praising Sammy. Sammy does all these funny moves. He does a bunch of flips and everything. And Jericho is mad at the end. He's like, Sammy is an effing show off. Enjoy your hand sanitizer. Then he walks off. And then they show a little a shot of his little chihuahua in the corner, which is good video hype package for Dustin versus Kip. They've been doing these video hype packages before all the TNT tournament matches. The one with Colt Cabana and Lance Archer was great. These ones, the one at the beginning of the show with Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara was good. And then the one right here with Dustin and Kip Sabian was great as well. So this is the quarterfinal match. And again, if Dustin loses, he will retire. I think that was a horrible thing to do because it basically gave away the ending of the match. There was no way that Dustin was not going to win this match. So it's such a throwaway stip or it's such a stipulation that should be put on matches of big importance, whereas this seems to be a throwaway at this point. There's no way that Dustin was going to lose, so I think the stipulation was really pointless. And why isn't this being a elimination match for the tournament not a big enough stipulation to begin with? So that it didn't do much for me, and I wish they did not go down this route because it really made no sense when it's already a elimination match for the title. So they didn't need to do it. Dustin offers a handshake at the beginning. Kip just isn't having it. This basically was a basic wrestling match. It was pretty standard, kind of back and forth. Somebody would take it for a little while, then the other guy would make a little bit of a comeback, and then the other guy would turn it around again. Ford ends up actually getting involved at one point, choking Dustin on the ropes behind the ref's back. Brandy doesn't get physically involved, but she's like yelling at her because she's kind of like working her way around the ring to Penelope, and Penelope lets go before Brandy gets there. Kip starts actually working over Dustin's leg. He's got a little bit of a limp right here, and he tries to scoop slam Kip Sabian at one point, and kind of like his leg gives out, and Kip just kind of falls right on top of him. Aubrey has to pull Kip Sabian off of Dustin at one point because he's just throwing right hands, closed fists, and whatnot. And as this is happening, Penelope tries to get involved, but Brandy actually jumps into the ring, gives her a huge spear, and then Dustin gives Kip Sabian a destroyer and picks up the win right there with the destroyer. So originally it was called correctly. Tony called it the Destroyer, and then corrected himself to a Code Red, and then later on Jericho called it a Code Red. It was not. It was definitely a Canadian Destroyer. So the first call was correct. The corrections were wrong. That was not a Code Red. The opponent's arms are on the front side of the legs, whereas in the Code Red, they're pinned under the backside of the other guy's legs. So, yeah, wrong move. Anyways, they say that after this match, they say that it's going to be Kip and Jimmy Havoc versus Best Friends next week, and that is where we leave it. So, oh man, my dog is starting to scratch the door, and hopefully she stops doing that in a minute. All right, so basically the main thing out of this is how are they going to finish off this tournament? Because we have 4 guys left. So we have Lance Archer, Dustin Rhodes, Cody Rhodes, and Darby Allin. At this point, they could potentially go in any direction because you have Cody, who is obviously like the biggest babyface in the company, and he could pick up the win. And again, he's going to be facing Darby Allin. They've matched up a few times. They've gone to a draw. He's beaten Darby Allin once. So he has a win and a draw against Darby Allin. So do they 50-50 it and give Darby Allin the win over Cody and then send Darby Allin into the finals? Most likely against Lance Archer, but again, or do they do Dustin actually upsets Lance Archer somehow, putting off the Lance Archer versus Cody match, which Jake the Snake has been pushing for and claiming that Cody is trying to avoid? Do they then do Dustin versus Cody, or does Darby Allin go in versus Lance Archer? I think the least likely is going to be Darby Allin versus Dustin. That's probably the one match we can safely rule out from happening. But it doesn't mean that Dustin couldn't go in and then it be against Cody. And then Dustin wins that match because Cody won the last match. And Dustin picks up the title at 51 years old. Again, it'd be funny if the inaugural champion is 50 years old, just like how Chris Jericho, Jericho's 49 or something when he got the title. But you could see it going, any of these four guys could be in the end. I think the most likely and most logical way to go, Cody beats Darby Allin, Lance Archer beats Dustin, Lance Archer then beats Cody, and Lance Archer is the title. Gets the title. I don't think Cody technically needs it. He is already super over as he is, and he doesn't really need to get built up anymore. And my dog is crying, and please stop crying, Chloe. I don't think Cody needs the title, but it would not surprise me if Cody won and beat Lance Archer. It would not surprise me if he beat Dustin. It's really this is what I love about AEW is I really have no idea how they're going to go, because any four of these guys is a perfectly reasonable choice to go with. And that is what I really love about AEW, is that being able to predict AEW is difficult. And that's why I love watching it, because I know they're not going to swerve me for the sake of being any of these guys would not be a swerve to me, because I could see any of them winning the title. So however these matches all play out, I don't feel like I'm getting worked, though we are, obviously. But I don't feel worked is probably the wrong word. I don't feel like AEW is pushing against the audience on how they book things. The logical way, I think, is, like I said, Cody wins over Darby, Lance wins over Dustin, Lance beats Cody. I think that's the most logical way to go. But I can't say it's going to be the way they go. And that's what I love about this. I could speculate all day, and I could talk myself into all four of them over and over and over and never be able to settle. That, I think, is going to be my most logical way to go. But I honestly have no idea how it's going to go. So that is where we stand. We will find out more next week. Again, looking forward to it. So we know we have Kip Sabian and Jimmy Havoc versus Best Friends next week. And then we also have Marco versus Brodie Lee, Cody versus Darby Allin. I'm assuming they're going to push Dustin versus Lance Archer 2 weeks out from now. We're also supposed to hear from Jon Moxley next week as well. So very interesting. We are now about a month out from Double or Nothing. I think we're exactly a month out because today is the 23rd. So May 23rd, I believe, is the show. So we are a month out from Double or Nothing. So they are going to need to figure out how they're going to work this out. I believe the title final is going to be at Double or Nothing. But how are they going to build the rest of the matches? Are we going to see the tag title defended? Are we going to see the women's title? We have not heard from Nyla Rose since all this started happening. So what are we on? Week 5 from not hearing from Nyla Rose at all. We've seen Hikaru Shida, who is ranked the number 1 right now, and we've seen Britt Baker, who I think is number 2 at the moment. Might even be farther. She might even be farther down at this point. She might be 3 or 4. I haven't checked the rankings for a little bit. So I'm not sure how they're going to do that. Currently, they have not set up a tag title program. Kenny Omega was at the tapings, but Hangman Page was not. Bucks were not. So I don't know what other tag teams there were at. We had Best Friends. Dark Order. Was Uno and Stu Grayson there? I don't remember. But anyways, so I don't know if we're even going to have a tag title match at Double or Nothing. So again, I think this is going to be one of those. I think it's just going to have to be a special on BR Live, whether it be free or super cheap. I don't see this being a full-fledged $50 pay-per-view by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll see how it plays out, because we are still a little, being 4 weeks out, just over 4 weeks out, and not having the information, be a little interesting. So hopefully we find out more in the coming weeks. So thanks a lot, everybody, for listening and watching. If you are listening to this as a podcast, head over to the YouTube channel and subscribe, and be sure to click the bell notification, because I schedule the show at least a few hours out, so you are alerted to the actual hour that I'm going to live, or if I'm going to go live the next day. Last week I did it on Friday. Normally I'll do it on Thursday, but you head over there, hit the bell, and it'll let you know when I'm going to do a live show, so you can join in the chat and ask questions, give feedback, and all that fun stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'd like to get this as a podcast, you can find it on all your favorite podcast apps. If you can't, shoot me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. You can also head over to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed directly from there. If you'd like to be a co-host on this show for either AEW, for New Japan, or for both, or you just want to be a fill-in until I get somebody, or if somebody just can't make it that particular week, shoot me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. So until next week, I will see you for the AEW Dynamite review next week. Thanks for watching. That's Wrestling. I'll see you next week. See you guys.